How's everybody doing today? This is Dave Lapham, and you're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, as always, emanating from our outstanding studios that they provide for us, and they are second to none, believe me, and have been podcasting with guests about free agency and the NFL draft and the combine and all the things that come along with that. Former players turned broadcasters, coaches, players, been catching up, getting opinions from a little bit of everybody, draft gurus, draft experts. All of that's going to be coming as we come forward to the NFL draft, which will be fast approaching, April 24th, 25th, and 26th, getting toward the end of the month here. But veteran free agency, we're in full effect of that. So let's first of all, let's take a little time and review what the Cincinnati Bengals have done to this point in time in free agency. They have signed 17 free agents, 13 of their own, and that is a combination of draft picks by the Cincinnati Bengals. The legendary Paul Brown had a philosophy of identify players, identify talent, draft those players that you feel are worthy, develop those players, and most importantly, retain them. You know, don't let them go after a first contract, and all the resources and dollars and talent that you put into developing those players organizationally and with the coaching staff, don't let that be a benefit of another franchise. And that's pretty much the philosophy that Mike Brown and the Blackburns, Katie and Troy Blackburn, are following and leading the truth here in Cincinnati. It's a different era now, though. You do have to dabble in free agency. Unrestricted free agency is not only retaining your own players, but bringing in some from other teams, and the Bengals have done that in both areas. 17 free agents, 13 of their own. First of all, Joe Burrow, he was not a free agent, but they did extend his contract. That was a big commitment financially in terms of the average cap hit per year. Jamar Chase, they get done, 4 years, $161 million. T. Higgins, 4 years, $115 million. Mike Gesicki, 3 years, $25.5 million. I mean, these averages are crazy. Over $40 million a year for Jamar, $28.75 million for T. Higgins, $8.5 for Mike Gesicki. B.J. Hill, 3 years, $33 million, $11 million a year. So you've extended your quarterback, who's not only a franchise quarterback, he's probably as good as any in the National Football League and maybe in the history of the National Football League. You signed, or you re-upped for 4 more years the 2 receivers you drafted. One player 5th in a draft, the other player 33rd in a draft. That's 5th player of the first round, 1st player of the second round in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And then Mike Gesicki from an outside franchise 2nd-round pick coming in with the Dolphins into the National Football League. You re-up him. B.J. Hill, same. Get him in a trade. Greatest trade ever, in my opinion. Billy Price for B.J. Hill. B.J. Hill still getting it done, paying him $11 million a year. But you retain Cody Ford, who is going to be battling for that guard spot in the interior of the offensive line. He can play all 5 offensive line positions as well as tight end, a big body guy in short yardage and goal line. Tanner Hudson, a 1-year deal. Joseph Osai, a 1-year deal for $6.5 million, a good commitment there. Cam Sample, 1-year deal for $1,225,000. So they've done a pretty good job. Marco Wilson, they brought back a 2-year deal for over $2 million. Jackson Kirkland, they brought back to the franchise. Cam Grandy, these are young players they're trying to continue to develop. So 17 free agents, 13 of their own, and then 4 from other organizations. Lucas Patrick, the offensive lineman, will be competing at the guard position. He's been in the league for 9 years. Very solid football player, 107 games, 64 starts in his career. Oren Burks, they signed to a 2-year deal for $5 million. He's been in the league 8 years. He is with the world champion Philadelphia Eagles most recently. He's got 108 games in the league as well. So Lucas Patrick and Oren Burks, over 100 games under their belt. That's experience that is invaluable. TJ Slayton, the big interior defensive lineman. People think very highly of his talents. 2 years, $15 million. He's going to be right on that nose, plugging things up. He can play 3 technique as well. Very, very solid football player. And the Bengals bring back Samaje Perine to the running back group. 2-year deal, $3.8 million. Samaje is a talented runner. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's played in 7 post games, so very experienced football player and can do a lot. Can run it, runs good routes, can catch the football. Most importantly, he's really perfected, really worked on blitz pickup. And with Joe Burrow at the quarterback position, got to have guys that will do the down and dirty work of blitz pickup. PJ and Brown will get that done as running backs for Joe Burrow. So free agency is still going on. I mean, there's secondary market of free agency that can be talked about for sure. And there are some players that are out there in that fashion as well. Will the Bengals be spending more money in terms of veteran free agents to be determined? But there are some offensive linemen out there still, interior offensive linemen. There are fewer defensive tackles out there. There was a run on defensive tackles. So the secondary market, I mean, it was fast and furious, and it really slowed down. There'll be the draft, and then there'll be even another market right before training camp where there'll be a final market of veteran free agency out there as well to bring to camp. So in terms of the upcoming draft, the combine is over and done. What will the Cincinnati Bengals do? They've got 6 draft picks this year, which is not really the norm. Normally they have more than 7. There are 7 rounds in the draft. They've had 8 draft picks, at least 7 draft picks or more over the last few drafts. This year they've only got 6. They traded their 7th round pick to acquire Herbert, and Herbert is basically gone to the Indianapolis Colts. So that was part of that transaction with Herbert going. So the Bengals have the 17th pick, the 49th pick, the 81st pick, 119th pick, 153rd pick, 193rd pick of the draft. You got to think that this draft, in my mind, is not necessarily loaded with Hall of Famers. You never know, but that would be foolhardy to think that there's a bunch of Hall of Famers in any draft. It has to play out. It has to play out for a number of years. But there are good football players in this draft, just like there are in every single draft. How many of them are there? Some people think there are only 5. Some people think there are maybe 10. And then there's a little bit of a drop-off. But bottom line is, there's from wherever you want to say, from 5 to 35, from 10 to 40, whatever the number is, there's a lot of players. There's not another big drop-off in terms of talent. There's talent in for a long period of time where there's players, the 17th pick of the draft where the Bengals are right now, and the 34th pick of the draft where they're going to be in the second second round, or the 49th pick of the draft where they're going to be in the second round, might not be that big of a difference. Or the 34th pick, 17th and 34th, equal spots. There's not going to be a major difference in terms of the talent available because of the depth that there is in this draft. There's a lot of really, really good football players, and they're all from an equal pool. Not totally equal, but they were very, very similar in terms of the talent pool. So it would make sense if the Bengals could do it to find somebody that to trade back with. You don't necessarily want to trade up and give up more draft picks unless something crazy happens where somebody drops, to 17 that you had no inkling that it might take place, and you had them like in the top 10 on your board, or maybe number 5 on your board, or whatever the case may be. But if that's the case, others would be trying to trade up as well, and it'd be a real competition at that point in time. But I would think trading back is a very strong possibility. So if you take your first round pick and trade back, you should be able to get, at least another day 2 pick. If you trade your second round pick and move back? Would you get an end of a day 2 pick, beginning of a day 3 pick? Third round pick, same way. And we're talking first day is day 1, day 2 is second and third round, and then day 3, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round. So can the Bengals trade back? Yeah, they can. They can pick up extra draft choices. And with the draft as deep as it is, would that be something that might be taken into consideration? Very possibly so. But I do want to congratulate the Cincinnati Bengals because there have not been a whole lot of very long-term contracts done in terms of free agency. There's been one 5-year deal consummated, and that's Will Freeze signing with the Minnesota Vikings, the guard, the interior offensive lineman. There have been that was one 5-year deal. There have been 6 4-year deals. The Bengals have 2 of those 4-year deals in their wide receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Jamar 4 years, $161 million, average annual $40 a year. T. Higgins 4 years, $115 million. 2 of the 6 4-year contracts are with the Cincinnati Bengals. Pretty significant. 3-year contracts, 45 3-year contracts have been done. There have been 40 2-year contracts done in free agency, 272 1-year contracts done, 272. So people are a little bit apprehensive about signing long-term deals because the way some of these long-term deals have been structured, it's been very, very structured very unsoundly for the franchise. So I think it's interesting. The Bengals have always been very, very aware of keeping their deals cap level on a year-by-year basis. So right now, Trey Hendrickson, the one the Cincinnati Bengals haven't signed, and that's the one that's looming out there, and everybody's like, are they going to let Trey Hendrickson go? Well, no, they said, okay, go out and see what kind of a trade value there is. Well, if a franchise is going to be paying Trey Hendrickson $30 million a year on an annual basis plus, to give up a first-round pick, to have the privilege to do that, or even a second-round pick, have the privilege to do that, doesn't make a lot of economic sense in today's salary cap National Football League. So, I mean, I don't think the Bengals will take a third-round pick for what they think Trey Hendrickson is worth. So, get the deal done. I think they will. I think the Bengals will get it done. There's 1 year remaining on his contract. He is not an unrestricted free agent. They said go ahead out there and see what the trade market looks like. It doesn't look like it's very, very strong for the reasons that I just talked about. So now we value you, Trey Hendrickson. We're going to pay you what you're worth. You've had edge rush guys signed for $35, $40 million. That's the way of the world in today's National Football League. You've had another defensive lineman recently signed for $25 million a year. So Trey is scheduled to make $15, $16 million a year. I think it's 15.8, 16.2, whatever it is this year. It's in that range. Structure a contract where there's big bonus money up front, say $15 million up front. So now he's compensated $30 million this year. Say it's $20 million up front. Now he's compensated $35 million this year. And then the bonus decreases. You prorate it out the length of the contract. And the bonus money decreases, the salary increases. So you have a $25 million bonus, whatever it is, $20 million bonus, and the $16 million salary this year. Then the following year, as the bonus money decreases, the salary increases. And you have cap levels that you can deal with. And it doesn't destroy your salary cap. And that's what the Cincinnati Bengals have done a phenomenal job of. I mean, their roster building has been draft, develop, and retain. But I'm telling you, they've not put together ego contracts. You got to avoid those ego deals where the back end of the contract is inflated with ridiculous salaries that nobody has any intention of being able to fulfill. So now there's dead money, and you're in cap trouble. And when the contract is signed, there's a big public celebration. There's a party. There's everything that goes along with it. Then as the contract goes on, there's a hangover. And the hangover gets worse. It doesn't get better. Usually hangovers over time will get better. Over time, the hangover is going to get worse here. And now all of a sudden, you're letting players go that are in their prime because the contract, organizationally, it was done improperly. And you're not letting a player go because of lack of talent. You're letting them go because can't afford the deal. The salary cap does not permit that kind of money to be spent. So you want to let players go because of diminished skill set, not because of cap issues that you are responsible for because of the contract structure. So the Bengals have done a tremendous job of putting together responsible deals in that regard. And they have $6 million of dead money. There are teams in the National Football League that have $60 million of dead money, $66 million of dead money. So the Cincinnati Bengals have basically identified their own. They've drafted them. They've retained them. They've developed them. Then they've retained them. And what they've done is they've developed players that have position versatility. Just about everybody that they've re-signed can play more than one position. And that's a big factor, I think, in today's football. The other thing is that you've got to identify not only special players from a talent standpoint, special people. And when you watch Bengals.com and you see Joe Burrow embracing T. Higgins and Jamar Chase after they sign their deals, that's a picture's worth 1,000 words, as the old saying goes. I mean, these guys, it's very, very close friends, basically extension of family kind of relationships that they built. And with the signings of these players, Cincinnati now has become more of a destination. You want to go play with players of this caliber. So they're doing a lot of things the right way. There's no question about it. The new coaches that are part of the organization are going to be interesting to watch how they put things together as well. Al Golden, the defensive coordinator, Jerry Montgomery, defensive line coach, Mike Hodges, a linebacker coach, Mike Moon is the defensive assistant, Sean Desai is a senior defensive assistant on that side of the football. Offensively, Scott Peters, the new offensive line coach, Mike McCarthy, not that Mike McCarthy, but a different Mike McCarthy is his assistant offensive line coach, and Jordan Salkin is assistant wide receiver coach. So basically, you've got a scenario where there's been some turnover in the coaching staff. Zach Taylor has done a phenomenal job building the culture in this franchise, and it's a dynamic culture. The players want to be part of the culture, these young coaches will develop these players even further. There's meat on the bone, and I do think that Zach Taylor is a highly regarded coach around the National Football League in terms of being a place that players want to come to, because when you do things right for players and when you build a very positive culture for players, word gets around the National Football League. When you're doing it right, it gets around. When you're doing it wrong, it gets around. There's no question about it. And I think the Cincinnati Bengals are doing a lot of things right. It's becoming a destination. The city of Cincinnati is a great place to live, as we all know, right in the middle of the country. From a travel standpoint, you can get anywhere in the country reasonably. So it's got a lot going for it. The city itself, the culture of the city itself, it's got big city amenities and restaurants and that sort of thing in a smaller city environment. Great place to raise a family. A lot of players, when they're done playing for the Cincinnati Bengals, stay right here in Cincinnati to raise their families. Anthony Munoz, Max Montoya, a couple of big offensive linemen from the West Coast. They're still here in Cincinnati. I thought they might be going back to the West Coast, but they fell in love with the city of Cincinnati. That says a lot, believe me. No question about the city of Cincinnati. And it's one of the greatest places that anybody could live and raise their family. We all know that. With that said, like I said, I've talked to a lot of people in the profession about free agency and about the upcoming draft. We talked about the depth or we should talk about the depth in the upcoming draft. The offensive and defense. We talked about maybe not Hall of Fame players, but a lot of depth in the draft. Well, the two areas the Bengals have the biggest need: interior of the offensive line, interior of the defensive line. A lot of football players there. That can be addressed in this year's draft. So let's see what you guys have to think.
We got to take care of some business, Lap.
All right, Dave.
Remember, everyone, the 3rd annual First Star Logistics Draft Party, Bengals Draft Party, April 25th, Friday, April 25th. All the tickets are gone, Lap.
There you go.
But as we've done the previous 2, we're going to be streaming it live exclusively on the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. So you want to be there. We're going to go live at 7 p.m. We're going to have prizes, not only for those who are in attendance, but also for those who are watching online.
All right.
So we can't thank First Star Logistics enough because, again, Brad Johansson's going to be the main host. You're going to be there. Our good buddy Joe Goodberry is going to be brought in town, and we're going to have some special guests. We got another person that's going to be on the panel as well. It's going to be more of a college background of recruiting and so forth about these guys who've watched these guys from high school all the way through their college careers. And then we're going to have some specials guests from the Bengals. We won't want to revolve who those are right now, but you want to be watching because a lot of unbelievable prizes are going to be given away both to those in person and those online.
And that's where the sausage is made during the NFL draft. Of course, veteran free agency as well. But the draft, that's been the lifeblood of this franchise. Paul Brown certainly believed in it. And free agency has evolved since the era of Paul Brown. The draft was really, other than trades, was how you built your franchises. So identifying talent, drafting that talent, developing that talent, then retaining that talent was what Paul Brown was all about. And it's what the Cincinnati Bengals as a franchise, for the most part, considered to be vitally important today as well. So the draft continues to be the lifeblood of developing a roster here in Cincinnati.
We also have to say hello to our usuals who join us almost every time we do a live stream lap. Yash is over in England.
Love Yash.
He's with us, Dan the Man, and Dolores,
and the man,
Natty Ron. So we've got,
nice.
got our regulars are here with us every time. We cannot thank them enough for joining us every time we do a live stream. So let's get to some questions, Lap. First, let's go. We're going to go to Yash. Would you trade down in this draft?
Would I? I would. If it made sense, and I think it's going to make sense. Kind of talked about that a little bit in the early soliloquy to the podcast here. But there is depth in this draft, and there's depth in this draft in areas of need for the Cincinnati Bengals, the interior of the offensive and interior of the defensive line. So, I mean, unless a player is sliding, that it's like, boy, might want to hang in there a little bit longer and see if he continues to slide. I might not want to trade back if this player, for whatever reason, appears at 17 or is there at 49 when the Bengals have their pick in the second round. So, yeah, I would consider doing it because I think the Bengals draft success, part of the success of the draft in the past few years has been multiple picks at multiple positions instead of just drafting one interior offensive lineman or one interior defensive lineman or one safety, or they'll double down. You know, when you have multiple picks, you can double down in a position group. And in some cases, even, you know, they've drafted 3 guys at one position group. That's not common. It's more rare, but they have done it. Or they've drafted 2 and signed 1 as a college free agent. Or in this case, they've already signed a veteran interior offensive and defensive lineman. It's not to say they're done doing business in that regard from an unrestricted free agent standpoint with the interior, the offensive and defensive lines. But the other way to build your roster and build roster depth in those two position areas of need is through the draft. So I think if it makes sense to trade back, I think they do it. I think they're always on the alert. I mean, the way we kind of talked about it before, but they've got it doesn't matter what position we're talking about, they'll have the top 50 players in the draft, in their opinion, 1 through 50, 1 through 100. And as the picks are going by, they're crossing off, what guys are going. Some guys, will go in the top 10 that they may have rated at 20. Or there may be, a guy that doesn't make the top 10 that the Bengals thought was the 5th pick of the draft. So everybody's got different opinions. Usually it's not that big of a disparity, though. Usually, everybody has different ideas on how they stack their board. Some teams stack their board by need solely. So their board is going to look a lot different than the Bengals that are rating players. Now, there's always going to be a bias toward need when you're rating players. I mean, if you've got, a guard or a wide receiver at about the same spot in the draft, what do? You probably, if there are 2 of 4 players, say there's a interior, say there's a guard, say there's a running back and a safety and a wide receiver, and your biggest need is guard. Well, you'll go with guard. If there's four different players of different position groups at that 17th or 49th spot, the Bengals will go, basically they have groupings of players, and then within the grouping of player, it'll be, all right, this is our biggest need in this grouping, but if somebody slides to a spot, it's like, we had this guy in this grouping up above the grouping we're talking about, and he's still there, he goes to the top of this grouping. So it doesn't, and it may be a position that isn't of the most need, a guy that slides down into the second grouping. May not be an interior offensive lineman or interior defensive lineman, but that's pretty much how they do it. It has to be a real eye-catching drop, though, for the Bengals to get away from their philosophy of, I mean, if they have a guy rated at in a grouping of 17, he, for whatever reason, the grouping looks a little bit different, but not a lot different. Say somebody that the Bengals had in their grouping of 17, they went at like 15 or 19. That's not a disruptive thing to the Bengals groupings. It has to be a significant drop for the Bengals to make a change. Now, in a perfect world, they'd hope that every single one of their players in the grouping and players that are above their grouping are available to them when they pick at that grouping in the round of that draft. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, there's always surprises, and everybody talks about the big surprises, the top 20 surprises, but there are surprises that in the inner circles of the league. Oh, geez, I didn't have that guy. I didn't have him rated as a 3rd round. I didn't have him any higher than the 6th round. How the hell did he go in the 3rd round? Everybody has different ways of looking at players. They're running different systems. They want different skill sets out of players. They value things differently in terms of intangibles. Everybody has their own way of doing business, and that's what makes the NFL, interesting, because everybody's different in a lot of ways.
Henry W. Houday Lap, do you think the Bengals will sign another free agent guard, Reisner or other? I'm not convinced Patrick or Ford are starting caliber.
Yeah, I mean, I think Reisner is making noise. I mean, he definitely wants to be signed by the Cincinnati Bengals. There's no question about that. He's one of a few guys in terms of veterans that are still left out there. Hernandez is another one that's out there. Interior offensive lineman. Brandon Scherf is out there. He's a veteran, a little bit longer in the tooth. He's had some injury issues. Will Hernandez, as I mentioned. Reisner is another guy that's out there. And then Tristan Colon is out there from Arizona. So you've got two guys from Arizona out there, Will Hernandez, Tristan Colon, Reisner, Minnesota. There are still some veteran offensive linemen out there that they could consider signing, but the economics of it. What do the Bengals have left? And they've made a big splash in free agency. Let's face it, they've thrown a lot of dollars out there. How many dollars do they have left for another veteran interior offensive lineman or a veteran interior defensive lineman? You know, maybe they're going to have to go to the draft in that regard, particularly when you think about signing the two receivers, signing the tight end, signing the defensive tackle, and other players that the Bengals brought back of their 13 unrestricted free agents of their own that they re-signed. They still have Trey Hendrickson to get done, and he doesn't fall into the unrestricted free agent category. But we all know that it ain't no joke. You got to get Trey Hendrickson signed. The dude, 35 sacks the last 2 seasons, most in the National Football League. 17 and a half last season, led the National Football League. 17 and a half the year before, did not, but it was in the top handful. I mean, Trey Hendrickson is a legit problem for other teams off the edge. You don't a guy who led the league last year and for the last 2 seasons, his total leads the league. You get that guy signed. And the Bengals, I think, are going to get him signed. I really believe that. I think that there's going to be a big bonus involved. You know, he's going to, like we talked about earlier, I think Trey Hendrickson will be taken care of. And the bonus will bring the $15.8, $16.2 million salary up into the high 20s, 30s, mid 30s, whatever. And from that point forward, as the bonus decreases, the salaries increase, and everybody's happy. And I think Trey Hendrickson has earned it. I think he's deserved it. He deserves it. You know, when you basically outperform your contract, these are the things that you have to address. And when the Bengals re-sign the 2 wide receivers, they re-sign when they re-sign their tight end. I mean, it sends a message that when you perform to the highest level, we're going to take care of you. We're not going to let other people harvest our crop. And, you know, we identified the talent. In some cases we drafted, some cases we acquired, but we developed. Now we want to retain. So I think Trey Hendrickson will be a Cincinnati Bengal. I think he wants to be a Cincinnati Bengal. I think the Cincinnati Bengals want him to be a Cincinnati Bengal. Took a look at the trade market, like we talked about. It's a tough dynamic, that kind of compensation, and then give up a high draft pick that you'd have to give up. It's not like Trey Hendrickson, isn't a great player. He's a phenomenal player, but there's organizational responsibilities involved as well in these things.
Dan the Man, Lap, what do you see as the biggest glaring need? Offensive guard, defensive tackle, defensive end. How should we draft that position at 17, even if better players at other positions are available?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in I think they're both glaring needs. I think I would not have a problem if they took an interior lineman, would not have a problem if they took a defensive tackle. I would also not have a problem, like we were talking about earlier, if somebody that they had on their board in the top 10 was still there at 17 if they took that player. That I don't. That's been the Bengals' philosophy: best available player. And if he slides from one grouping into another, you had him in your first grouping. He's still there in your second grouping. So are the players that you had in your second grouping, but this guy invaded it. You got to take him. You got to take him. Now, I mean, you look at it and you say, oh, how can you say that? I mean, how about the wide receiver position? The Cincinnati Bengals, they're all set at their wide receiver position. They got every wide receiver that they could possibly want with the 2 that they signed. They also are developing Yossi as the third receiver. They've got players that they're working to develop and take to another level at that position group. I think Walters is one of the best wide receiver coaches in the National Football League. I think he develops talent as well as anybody does in the National Football League. And like I said, I think the Cincinnati Bengals have 6 wide receivers now. So you're saying, all right, well, if a wide receiver slides to number 17, it all depends. Which wide receiver is it? Is it a wide receiver? You go around the National Football League, the Cincinnati Bengals may have their wide receiver board in this order. The Indianapolis Colts have it in that order. The Los Angeles Chargers have it in this order. I mean, there may be a lot different order to the wide receiver position based on your offense, what you want, how you want your receivers to perform in your offense, what body type you're looking for at the receiver position. I mean, there's all kinds of variables. So, but bottom line, I think the Cincinnati Bengals organizationally take the best available player. Unless if you had this player that slide, you're picking at 17, and the player that you had at 15 is there at 17. But your number one guard that you have on your board is in this grouping at 17, and he's still there. Your number one guard, as opposed to the number 3, number 4 receiver, when you've already got 6 on your roster, you probably at that point in time probably decide to go with the guard. So I mean, it's not cut and dried, but if somebody drops from the top 10 and is there at 17, you got to consider it. Or you have to say, why is he there? Maybe some alarms have to go off. Is he there because of character? Do people know something about him that I don't? Maybe I need to do a little more due diligence. Maybe I got to bang the phones here a little bit and find out what the hell's going on. Why'd this guy that we had in the top 10 still there at 17? And multiple teams have passed on him multiple times. What's the reason for that? That's what goes on.
We're going to go back to Henry W. Any news on what's happening with Jermaine Pratt?
There is a lot going on with Jermaine Pratt. Jermaine Pratt and Al Golden have a prior relationship. Al Golden was the coach with the Cincinnati Bengals at the linebacker position when Jermaine Pratt was brought to the football team. So, I'm sure they're having meetings and sifting through a lot of things. Jermaine Pratt made a trade request that the Bengals have not acted upon, and I'm not sure that they will. I think that Al Golden is looking at Jermaine Pratt to make significant contributions to his defensive football team. I think that around the league, the Bengals ran a 4-2-5 scheme, basically with Lou Anarumo, who, congratulations to Lou Anarumo, is now with the Indianapolis Colts. He's a hell of a football coach, and he landed right on his feet. For whatever reason, it didn't work here in Cincinnati, and both parties have moved on. Al Golden is now the defensive coordinator, and I think that he runs a 4-2-5 as well. Is it the exact same? No, there's a lot of differences. I mean, just because you have the same numbers in personnel, 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 members of the secondary, you can do a lot of different things out of that personnel grouping. And Al Golden does a lot of things differently than Lou Anarumo and other coaches do around the National Football League that run 4-2-5 packages. But Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson considered to be a pretty darn good tandem at the linebacker position. The two of them have combined for a bunch of interceptions. It's a very productive inside linebacker group in terms of interceptions on a league-wide basis. It's amongst the league leaders. I think Logan Wilson's tied for the most interceptions or thereabouts since he's been in the league at the inside linebacker position. And Jermaine Pratt is the same type of athlete in terms of being a ball hawk. And he's a very intelligent football player, high football IQ, sees things quickly, makes decisions quickly as a result of the recognition factor being very, very quick. So there's some value to all of that. I would be, I don't know, I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked, but I'd be more than mildly surprised, I think, if in fact Jermaine Pratt was not at training camp.
All right, Lap. Dustin is putting you on the clock. Dave, if you were Duke, who are you taking at 17?
I have no idea. Tell me, Dustin, tell me what everybody took at 1 through 16, and I'll tell you what I'm taking at 17. I don't have any idea. You know, I would, all things being equal, I would probably go with interior offensive or defensive lineman. But I mean, if there's an edge rusher that slides down there that can give you some value to go along with Trey Hendrickson and the other young players that they're developing, I would, you'd have to think about that. You know, I think all things being equal, though, I would, if the draft goes according to Hoyle, maybe I would think there might be an interior offensive lineman or defensive lineman that would be worthy of that 17th pick if he hasn't already come off the board. If he already has, if there's been a run at the interior defensive line or offensive line positions, then I'd have to go to plan B and see what else is out there. I mean, how many of the great receivers would there be out there? I already told you that's not a huge position to need. Tight end position is well stocked. A lot of tight ends coming back. And their coach is as good as there is in the National Football League. You know, what about safety? What about corner? I mean, there are so many things. That's why you know, I'm trying to see here how many different players that the gurus, the experts, have the Cincinnati Bengals taken with the 17th pick of the draft. I've got that somewhere. Here it is. Mock drafts. Okay. Tyler Booker, Alabama. I'd be good with that. That wouldn't be a bad pick. Offensive lineman, obviously a guard. Tight end from Michigan, Colston Loveland is in a mock draft that I've seen. Luther Burden III, the wide receiver. South Carolina, safety. Nick Emanlova, whatever his name is. Last name, I butchered that, I'm sure. Safety out of South Carolina. Unbelievable. Guy's got over a 40-inch vertical, can fly, as big as a linebacker, 6'4". Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Florida State, interior guy. Mike Green, off the edge from Marshall. Gray Zabel, another interior offensive lineman out of North Dakota State. Malachi Starks out of Georgia, safety. You've got Maxwell Hairston, cornerback out of Kentucky. Flies, ran like a 4.28. Derek Harmon, running back out of Oregon. Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon. So, you know, you've got a plethora of options there at 17. Me personally, if Tyler Booker were there, I'd obviously be excited about that. I mean, I think the interior offensive and defensive line is the way to go. Walter Nolan, if Walter Nolan's there, if Tyler Booker's there, I mean, Gray Zabel, there's some split opinions on him. I think looking at a little bit of he's an outstanding athlete. I think he was a running back at one point in time before he moved to different positions. He's extremely athletic, but I'm telling you, tight ends, he dominates them. But you put him over a offensive tackle and square him up and say two-gap this guy, he gets moved a little bit. Or a guy that's going to two-gap him, handle this defensive tackle that's two-gapping you as an interior offensive lineman. You know, that's going to be a little bit interesting. I was talking about from the other side of it, Marshall, watching him, the kid from Marshall, the Mike Green.
Mike Green. Yeah,
Mike Green, the edge guy from Marshall. When he lines up over tight ends, no contest, handles them. Throw him over an offensive tackle, different dynamic, squaring up on that offensive tackle. I think Zabel is the same type of thing a little bit. I think he's an outstanding pass protector because as a former running back, he's got great feet. He's extremely athletic. Run blocking, I don't think is his bailiwick, particularly with the big wide-bodied two gappers. And in the National Football League, it's more so than he's faced when he was playing at North Dakota State for sure. But this kid is an extremely gifted athlete. Ray Zabel is, and Marshall also. Mike Green from the edge guy from Marshall. I mean, this guy, he's got skills. I mean, he's an incredible pass rusher. He's a great athlete, but I'm not sure if I want a one-dimensional player at 17. I'd like to have an interior offensive lineman who can pass protect, but is salty in the running game, coming off the football, moving the line of scrimmage in your favor. In interior defensive lineman, it all depends what you're looking for. You're looking for a nose tackle. Well, you signed a nose tackle in free agency. You're looking for a 3 technique. You signed a 3 technique in free agency. So get a guy that can play both. BJ Hill can play both. You just signed him in free agency. Slayton can Slayton play both? I think he's more of a nose. So let me put it this way though. Again, if Tyler Booker were there from Alabama at 17, I'd have to really think about that. Walter Nolan is an edge player who's more one-dimensional. They got him here at 17. Green, edge player, more one-dimensional. Gray Zabel, interior offensive lineman, outstanding pass protector. Not sure about the run blocking part of things. Those are some of the interior players, or some of the interior players that I've seen on draft boards that the Cincinnati Bengals would have as an option at 17. So again, with how many players are we talking about there? And this isn't all the mock drafts that are out there. 1, 2. We're looking at double digits. We're looking at more than 10 players that people are putting up there at number 17 based on what happens with the prior 16 picks. So in a perfect world, as a former lineman, would I love to have an interior offensive lineman or interior defensive lineman at 17? Hell yeah.
That's where you have to also, when you're looking at these boards, look at offensive tackles that maybe the Bengals would project more as an offensive guard.
Yeah, that's true, and that's a way that you go that makes the most sense. Offensive tackle into guard. If you played more guard than tackle in college, that's a tougher transition to kick out from center or guard to the tackle position. But let's take a look at some of the offensive tackles that are out there.
I know Kelvin Banks is one that's I've seen him fluctuate up and down boards.
Will Campbell, if Will Campbell's there, I'm jumping all over that one. I'm jumping all over Will Campbell. I think that one makes sense. I think Josh Connerly, he's the guy that played. He was a former running back. Josh Connerly at he's the guy at Oregon, athletic guy. I think that's another possibility to play inside. I do think that Donovan Jackson, is a guy that can play, outside or inside. I think there's multiple guys. Kelvin Banks, I think he'll be long gone. But the kid out of Texas, I think he's another one to look at. Marcus Bowe out of Purdue. This guy is a guard that's played some tackle, but if you want to look at guys that I've seen a little bit, that this guy's strong, agile, freak athlete, long, quick. His jam is unbelievable. When he jams with his hands into the chest, he's an extremely competitive player. Jonah Savanaya from Arizona, 6'4", 340-pounder. He's got a lot of physical power. There's no doubt about that. I think this guy would be a factor at the guard position if we want to start talking about names of players. There's quite a few guys. I was going going to talk about the draft maybe a little bit closer to the draft, but since we're doing a little live stream here, we'll hit some of these guys. So I think all of these players, that I've thrown out there and probably more make sense. I think that Dylan Fairchild, a guard out of Georgia, big beast. Some people don't have him rated quite as highly as others. Cameron Williams out of Texas is another one highly regarded. Jared Wilson out of Georgia is a lot of people think highly of Tate Ratledge out of Georgia as well. Another offensive lineman that people are pretty high on. I mean, there's plenty. Believe me, that's why I think at 17, I don't think you're going to have any trouble thinking that there's an offensive lineman available to me, an interior offensive lineman, be it a guard that's played a lot of guard that can go out to tackle, or a tackle that's played a lot of tackle that can kick inside the guard. And again, we talk about position versatility and how important it is. It's huge. It's huge. Position versatility is a big deal in the National Football League, and sometimes it's a tiebreaker in terms of when you're making draft picks. Does the tackle project better in terms of being able to kick inside to play some guard in an emergency, or does the guard project better to kick outside to play tackle in an emergency? Sometimes it's like, boy, we had great tackles in our collegiate program, so this kid get moved into guard, but he can play tackle and he can play it well. Sometimes it's the other way around. A kid that, man, he couldn't play tackle, so he got thrown into guard. So there's all kinds of different ways the cat was skinned. There's no doubt about that. And you have to put your own eyes on them, put them through all the workouts that you possibly can, find out what kind of person they are off the football field as well as on the football field, because the culture is a big deal. You don't want to bring anybody into the program, the organization, that would disrupt that. And the coaching staff and led by Zach Taylor has done an incredible job of building a tremendous culture here in Cincinnati. And with the signings that the Bengals have done this offseason, there's no doubt that this place has become a destination. Players want to come play for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm sure when the coaches go out, when they were in interviews with these prospects at the Combine, and when they have follow-up interviews, when they go to their college campuses, these college players want to get drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals have a premier quarterback, premier wide receivers. They re-signed a high-caliber tight end. They've taken care of their own, and everybody wants to come and be part of that. So if you play well in Cincinnati, you get rewarded, and that's some place that players want to be in, and they know that when you come to Cincinnati, you're going to get a square deal. When you look at signing a 4-year contract like the Bengals had done with their 2 wide receivers, it's big dollars, but it's going to be even cap distribution where they're going to be there for the life of the contract. It's not going to be other organizations where they push all the money to the back end of the contract with no intention of ever fulfilling it. And a good player is on the market, not because of the lack of talent, not because, he doesn't cut the mustard anymore, because it was an irresponsible contract that was executed. Bengals, when they put together a contract, their expectation is you're going to fulfill it as a player to the best of your ability, and as an organization, we're going to live up to our end of the bargain and fulfill it as well. You don't see them whacking players and with irresponsible contracts and messing up the salary cap. It just doesn't happen. I mean, like Paul Brown used to call it, what I want to do is sign a square deal. I want a deal that I know I can live with and fulfill, and I want you to feel like you can do the same.
Clouds 7 kind of makes a reminder here. We made a pick at 17 in the 90s that worked out pretty well. Linebacker Brian Simmons. We also got Takeo Spikes that draft. Talk about 2 great picks.
Yeah, no doubt. Yes, boys, Spikes and Simmons. Yeah, they were a tandem at that linebacker position. No question about it. Yeah, Simmons was a very, very gifted athlete at the linebacker position, and had a very, very high football IQ. Very good draft pick at number 17. If the Cincinnati Bengals can get the quality of human being and the quality of career that Simmons gave Cincinnati with the pick in this year's draft at 17, they'd feel like they're in high cotton. They'd be very happy.
Les Hernandez says, hello, Lap. Being an old Bengals fan, I see some similarities in Nick Emawari and a member of the SWAT team, the great number 33, David Fulcher out of Arizona State. I love this kid's game. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this kid is a beast. I know his numbers are ridiculous. His vertical is well over 40 inches. He runs like 4.3s, I think, like it's 4.38. He's like 6'4". He's built like a linebacker. I think teams are going to be. He's a great fit in today's NFL because the versatility he can provide. Is he going to be a safety? Is he going to be a linebacker in some packages, safety in some packages? Can he do both? Yeah, I think he can do both. I think that he's a Swiss Army knife for a lot of defensive coordinators that they're going to utilize a myriad of ways. I mean, you can put him in a 9 technique outside and let him rush the passer. He's done that as well out of a 2-point stance. I mean, I think this guy is somebody that can give you a lot of position versatility, a lot of value as a result of that. I think he's a genetic marvel with his size-speed ratio and strength. I think he killed it on the bench press with reps as well. He's one of those athletes. He's a rare breed for sure.
Guy that I'm really high on, Dave, is Private has Simply Take Kenneth Grant if he's there.
Kenneth Grant, big old beast, no question about that. The G-Men out of Michigan. Kenneth Grant, 6'3", 340 pounds, runs a 4.95. What? Thick, burly, bulky. Some of the things that I said about him, looking at him, he's very quick and athletic for that type of body type, and because of that, you can play him head up on the center, shade the center, 1 technique in the gap, 2 technique on the guard, head up on the guard, all the way out to a 3 technique outside shoulder on the guard. I think he's got that kind of position versatility. He converts quickness to power very, very well. He can 2-gap, like I said, down the middle of the player, or 1-gap penetrate with the athleticism that he has. He has, strong hands, not only strong hands. People talk about quickness and short step, first step quickness and all that. Hand quickness is a big deal. I mean, when a guy strikes you and it's like, I didn't even see it. I didn't even see that come. I mean, the power that comes with hand quickness and hand size, the power that generates is incredible. And this kid's got those strong, quick hands like that where he can stack and shed people. Hit you with those big, strong, quick hands and shed you, man, like an ear of corn. It's over. You're gone. So, he obviously can handle the double teams. Got a high motor. He's not a stiff and pass rush. I've seen little arm over action with him, little arm under action with him in the pass rush area. The thing that he has to, I think, make sure that he takes care of is he's so dominant. He's elite. In my mind, he's elite for his position group athletically. So when you're in college and you're a better man than the guy you're going against, you tend to get take things for granted, play a little high. Make sure you keep that pad level down. Consistently keep the pad level down, because in the National Football League, you're going against the best of the best. Now you've elevated yourself to the best of the best, and it's not going to be as easy for you as it was in the college game. You got to make sure that you apply all your techniques and keep your pads down. That's one thing that really, looking at tape of these college players that are really good players, they take for granted that pad level. They take it for granted. I don't need to worry about my pad level. I'm better than this dude. I'm stronger than this dude. I can block this dude in my sleep. When you start taking on that mentality, you start to get a little sloppy with things that you don't want to be sloppy with, and pad level's one of them.
Bengals fandom wants to remind everybody 50% of first round draft picks are considered bust per several studies. All right, Lap, we got to get kind of close out here. We've been on here for an hour already. Time flies and you're having fun.
No doubt.
So we want to remind everybody again, First Star Logistics third annual draft party, Friday, April 25th, live from the Handlebar Great American Ballpark. Tickets are all gone, but you can watch it live, streamed live. Make sure you, Brad Johansson, Dave Lapham, Joe Goodberry, all be live, along with some special guests and a lot of great prizes. So be sure to join us. And we're going to close out with one of our favorites. Dan the Man says, I love hearing Lap's recollections from the 70s and 80s teams. In case we can tap into that again today. Lap, how costly was Mike Reed's retirement after the 74 season? Oh, what could have been in 75, 76?
Whew. Amen to that, Dan the Man. Telling you what, 1974 was my rookie year with the Cincinnati Bengals, the third round draft pick out of Syracuse, like, I don't know, 61st, I think it was, or whatever, in the draft. They had a high pick from a trade that with San Francisco, I believe, was the draft pick that they used to select me out of Syracuse. Well, I come to, rookie camp, and I see Mike Reed, but not working against him, because the veterans are doing their workouts and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, the first time I go against Mike Reed is we had a little mini camp like right before training camp, and it was no shoulder pads or helmets, or it might have been just pads and helmets, no pads, just helmets, protect your head. Whoa. I mean, Chuck Studley's the defensive line coach. Tiger Johnson's my offensive line coach. And so we're doing one-on-one pass rush drill. And I'm like, what? Did I close my eyes? This guy, I mean, he's the quickest human being I've ever seen. He'd get in that frog stance, man. He'd put a lot, sink his butt and get his weight back, and he would explode out of that stance. And he was maybe 255 pounds. But man, was he explosive. I mean, his first step was the quickest I've ever been around, and he would explode into you. And his pass rush was incredible. They could use their hands. We couldn't. I had to try to pass block Mike Reed like this. My rookie year, it was hands to your chest. Well, they liberalized it, and they let you, my next couple of years, you could extend your fists, but you couldn't open your hands. Finally, they let you extend all the way and open your hands. But you're going against these unbelievable athletes like this, and you're trying to stay in front of them, and they can head slap you and everything else. I'm telling you what, man, Mike Reed was an incredible athlete, incredible, strong, quick, and not only that, but intelligent. I mean, football IQ off the charts, overall intelligence off the charts. And then, of course, a man of many talents. He was played in the symphony when he was at Penn State, played the piano in the symphony orchestra. He's the pianist. I mean, are you kidding me? While he's in college. And he gets, he's a concert pianist, does that for a little while, and then he starts just writing songs. Stranger in My House, Inside, Ronnie Millsap, other artists, big hits. Mike Reed becomes a music phenomenon. So here's a guy, it's hard enough to be the very top of one profession. He achieves the very top of two professions. And he decides to stop playing football before he was vested in retirement. He didn't play. He only played 4 years. He didn't even play a fifth year. He gave up football to get into music without a retirement plan in football. Gifted. And one of those guys that, there are a few people in your life when you meet them, you realize this dude's special. When you met Mike Reed, you knew he was special. Not only because of the multi-talents that he had, but as good as he was in all those areas, even a better human being. Mike Reed is one of the most exceptional people I've ever met in my life. If he had played 75, 76 and beyond, who knows? Who knows? I saw him get 5 sacks in a game against Gene Upshaw. Gene Upshaw, the Pro Bowl guard from the Oakland Raiders. Mike Reed, 5 sacks on him. That was the second time Mike Reed had a 5-sack game. 5 sacks in one game as a defensive tackle? Come on, man. It was the most unbelievable performance I'd ever seen. And I'm listening to Gene Upshaw walk off the field, and he's walking off the field with the rest of his offensive linemen shaking his head saying, man, that dude, oh my gosh, man, he's Art Shell. He goes, Art, I couldn't block him. I couldn't block that dude. And I'm thinking, I don't feel so bad now as a rookie when I see that he got 5 sacks against the all-pro Gene Upshaw. Mike Reed was special.
Lap, as always, I'm going to let you close it out. Anything else you have to say before we leave? We want to thank everybody again for being with us. And a final reminder, First Star Logistics 3rd Annual Draft Party, Friday, April 25th, 7 p.m., streamed exclusively on the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. Make sure to join Dave Lapham, Brad Johansson, Joe Goodberry, and many others with many, many great prizes to be given away.
Well, with that said, I just, it's the National Football League is a year-round deal. There's no doubt. The the preseason, the regular season, all that stuff is just part of it. There's the off season. There's strength and conditioning. There are your own individual workouts. There are mini camps. There are OTAs, organized team activities before the mini camps. It is a year-round thing. And right now, we're in the process of veteran free agent signings and then the upcoming draft. The month of April is very, very interesting because every year the organizations in the National Football League change personnel. One thing you can count on in the NFL, at the end of one season, it's going to be a lot different at the beginning of the next. Not everybody is going to be there. Your stars will be there, your nuts and bolts players, but sometimes there's surprising trades with star players and nuts and bolts players. And sometimes guys move in free agency because of irresponsible contracts like we're talking about. But the NFL draft is the bloodline for most organizations as well as free agency. And we're in that time of year. So we appreciate your thoughts on it. I know we've been podcasting with a lot of people with their thoughts. But you guys are the heart and soul, the bread and butter of the National Football League, the fans. And always like to hear what you have to say. With that said, we'll join you again probably closer to the draft.
Until next time, everybody, be sure to check out In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.